get to this fight and what that looks like in your life. Okay? I'm calling on you. Every single one of you that are here, you didn't know that, huh? That when you came tonight, you were going to have to speak. So I'm just going to drop it in your heart and think about it and open it up. And I really, we don't need to hear from everyone. That's not what I'm asking, Just a few of you, 5, 10, for a couple minutes, even 30 seconds. Just words of encouragement or something that's been put on your heart in prayer, something you feel like you've been compelled to tell people but haven't had a platform. Okay? And I also, encourage you to come up a little bit closer tonight if we can, because this is more of a communal-based meeting. I mean, we can project over microphones and stuff. You're fine where you're at, but just know we want to keep this kind of tight tonight. We don't have as many people here. But who we do have here, the one who helped us kind of launch in kind of our obscure way that started an office meeting. I was given the phone number to Palmer Davis, who is the founder of Waking Up Washington. Many of you have visited her website. She has been an organizer and been on the front lines of this for weeks, longer than we have. And she's really been a launching pad for us and been a blessing for us. So I'd like Palmer to take the mic. And I believe, Palmer, you're coming to us from Clark County, right? My hands are sweaty.
Thanks, Sean. How many people are here because your job's on the line? How many people have already filed exemptions? Okay. And how many people are concerned about this impacting your children? How many people kind of only just started coming out to stuff like this because of this mandate? Okay. Well, the really good thing is you're out here. We deal with, so I'm from the Vancouver area, and we do get a little bit of Antifa trickling in, and it can get a little bit weird sometimes, and people get a little scared. And I just love driving up here, seeing this. That's epic. That's really phenomenal. One of the things that's going to happen is just like with the mask mandates, it is going to come down to a question of enforcement. And you guys are really blessed being up here because I'm willing to bet you will be dealing with a lower percentage of enforcement. So you can take advantage of that. And please, as an employer yourself and just in the context of your own life, try your best to not enforce these bad rules, okay? So I know Sean and his group have done an amazing job of coaching you on the exemption process. Does everybody feel like you're in pretty good shape in terms of taking care of that? Like, who still wants some coaching on the exemption? Okay, so few. We can probably talk about that a little bit later. We might do some breakout groups or something.
You need coaching on the exemptions, come find us. We're here, okay? This is informal.
I think we'll just kind of do some breakout groups at the end so we can have some folks talk about that and some other tactics. So for context, so my name is Palmer. I live between Longview and Vancouver, and about a year and a half ago I got involved because of the shutdown and going to reopening rallies. And last winter God put it on my heart that the vaccine was going to be a big deal. It was going to be the problem we were going to be facing. And I had never done much research into vaccines, but I have really good friends in the medical freedom community. So I tried to track all that through the winter, but it was just moving so fast. It was like, wow, this is just going to get really ugly. And I think it was really hard for us all spring and summer to even know where to start. So now we know where to start, right? It starts with organizing, it starts with resisting, and the question is how. In Southwest Washington, we got hit hard fast because the biggest hospitals down there dropped their vaccine mandates before the governor did. August 3rd, Peace Health and Kaiser both said you need to be vaxxed up by August 31st or you're out. Now that deadline has passed, and we have hundreds of people at Peace Health who are now on unpaid leave and are kind of in limbo. And we're waiting to see what happens. And I wish that I could come to you and say this is a victory, because we did a lot of protesting, we did a lot of organizing, we did a lot of exemptions were filed, but we don't know how that's going to play out yet. The good news, although it's a little bit of a mixed bag, is that because they went through that battle first, there's already been the way has been paved to a certain degree. We know that there are thousands of people in this state who are resisting this. We know that no one is alone at their employers. Has everybody talked to their coworkers about this issue to make sure you're not alone? Because that's step one. Let's talk to your people, use your words. You have no idea how many people have come to me saying, I'm all alone, and I know that they're not, because I've heard from other people at their company. So talk to people. There are things you can do in the context of your company that might be different for each group. So for instance, at Peace Health, nurses didn't want to walk out on their patients, but in a different company, a walkout might be a great strategy. Be thinking about those things. We're all called to be grassroots organizers now. I know it's uncomfortable for people, but each one of us started at some point along the way because we were no longer okay with what we were being told to do. And you really have two options. Either do as you're told, or figure out a way to help your brother resist, because we won't be able to do it alone. So the second thing I always ask people to do after you've talked to people is then try to actually organize something. Assign a date, assign a time. All Sean did, it's not that miraculous, he just picked a place and time to get everybody together. And that started the pathway for people to get the exemptions done and start coming up with other options. Each and every one of us has the opportunity to do that. Hey, meet me at lunch, meet me in the parking lot, whatever it might be, let's talk about this. Can we write a group letter to our boss? Can we push back on the union? Can we do a walkout? Can we get a letter to can we get some press here? Can we do a protest? All those things to show resistance. The ultimate issue is whether or not they can enforce these mandates. And when it comes to the vaccine, there's so much resistance. In Washington State, I would argue that at least 30 to 40% of the state is adamantly opposed to these mandates, which was not the case when we were arguing over the shutdown last year. So this is where we have an opportunity. If these institutions can't enforce it because it's too hard, then that means that we will win. And it might be that we don't find out till October 17th or October 20th, but that's why it's so important to just be asking yourself, how can I show that not only do I resist this, but I am not alone in resisting it? You need to burden HR with those exemption forms, with letters. You need to be burdening any union bosses and any kind of bureaucratic agencies that are relevant to your issue, L&I, just with those letters and those calls and those emails. One example was actually with Kaiser. Kaiser pushed back their deadline for terminating everybody because they were drowned in exemptions. They had like 8,000 exemptions. And they just couldn't handle it. It's just too much paperwork. And one thing Jim Walsh has consistently been saying is that at the state level, that will be the case. They won't be able to, A, process all the requests for accommodation, and B, they won't be able to handle letting y'all go. So I do want to encourage you to remember the big picture. The hardest thing that's going on right now is psychological. Biden gets up there and says, hey, I'm the President of the United States, and I'm telling you all to vax up. Well, that's nice. But we all know what Biden's real authority is, and we all know that he has now placed the burden on employers who are trying to avoid this. Well, now he's just told them they have to. Do you really think every employer with more than 100 employees in this country is going to accept it? No. Lawsuits are piling up, and they're going to pile up further and further. And his authority, part of this was based on an executive order. Well, that's nice too. Trump wrote a lot of executive orders last year too. They don't really have a lot of teeth. So it comes down to the psychological warfare and people telling you have to, and people intimidating you, and people just throwing their weight around. But nobody has the authority to force you to do this under international law, under federal law, under state law, and they know this. They're counting on everybody just complying like they did last year with the masks. So we're not going to comply, right? Okay. I would encourage everybody to just tell yourself you're a soldier right now, and you need to protect yourself. You need to protect yourself mentally, spiritually, emotionally. You need to go ahead and unfollow the people in your Facebook feed that are talking about vaccinating because they have no choice. You need to turn off the news. You need to start praying. You need to go outside and go for walks and walk your dog and hang out with your kids and put the phone away, because it has never been more important that you hold on to your morale, your connection with God, that little inner voice that tells you what to do next. We have no idea how we're going to win this war, but I'll tell you one thing, you're not going to win it by turning on CNN. And you're not going to win it by listening to your mom tell you, well, honey, you got to keep your job. There's all those people and there's all those voices in your life, and you have to tell yourself, I am at war. I'm like a soldier. A soldier doesn't waste time with things that aren't part of his job, right? He has to stay focused on the battle. So take care of yourself. Show up at these things even if you've already got your thing done, just for the fellowship. Sean actually asked me to give a big picture, and I'm finally getting to that. So I can tell you a few updates. I think it's WFSI, the Washington something. It's a union for state employees. Actually, did you tell me about this yesterday? Whoopsie. Are you going to talk about this? What? About the do you have a good update? Okay. Yeah, okay. So we'll let him. Okay. We'll make Damon talk in a minute. There are these cases where people are we're getting the numbers, you know, and I would love to see more victories at the union level, because again, they're just kind of going, no, we have no choice. Well, you could make them feel that. Now I'm drawing a total blank on what the other. Oh, so the legal, so what we had happen with Southwest Washington, there was all these amazing healthcare workers that were mobilizing, and we were trying to get a legal fund set up to do various lawsuits. And there's been some stalls in that regard, but I just talked to a gentleman today, you may have heard of Pete Serrano. He's operating a foundation he's just started up called Silent Majority. So we'll be blasting that information out as soon as he gets his site up. But he's actually filing tomorrow to do injunctive relief, like the thing where you I'm not a legal expert, but the point is that there are lawyers who are finally stepping up and are taking action, and it'll be really fun to see him with that case tomorrow and that document of what he's actually doing. I have a website called Employees for Informed Consent, which is where I'm posting any resources that we do get. The other group that I am hearing good reports about, if you're looking for help with this sort of thing, is Liberty Counsel. They're based on the East Coast, but they seem to be doing a really good job of providing people with some real support on this battle. So, yeah, I just really, the big picture is that every industry is impacted, and now we're going to see students and children being impacted. People are not standing for it. At least a third, if not 40% of the state are resisting this. And so we just have to keep our faith strong, and we just have to keep our resilience and our conviction, and just trust that there is always going to be a way to get through this without actually taking that shot if you don't want to. So I think that's it for now. Thank you very much for being here. And I'll be down here. I've got some stickers. If you want to come grab one and just talk about stuff. Thank you.
Okay, folks, I'm going to do my usual bathrooms over here in the beige and blue building. I'm Angie. Thanks for coming out. Not to put Jim Walsh on blast, he's still under the impression that at some point Inslee will reel this back. He will cave on this. The numbers are not working in his favor for the people willing to vaccinate. There is no way the infrastructure of this whole state can collapse and you can sit back and watch that. The problem is we don't know when. And I can imagine that it'll be sometime after October 4th where the Johnson & Johnson shot, one-time shot, would need to be administered in order to keep your employment. But at least we have a House of Representatives legislator saying he will walk this back. So I want you to have a little bit of hope in your hearts. These times are very difficult. What's going on with Biden and what's going on with Inslee and everything that is not fair, and it's abuse. So I just wanted to let you know, I check in with Jim once a week, say, hey, I'm going to the meeting, what's your thoughts? And that's what he said today. Inslee will back off. It's just a matter of when. So keep some hope and prayer. Thank you.
All right. So, like I said, we kind of want to retreat and decrease so that you guys can increase here a little bit. We have a guest to start us off. His name is Ben Lupo. He's a DCYF employee, Department of Children, Youth, and Families, Juvenile Rehabilitation at Green Hill. I'm going to get him up here in a second. I just want you to pause, collect your thoughts. Come find me. I'm just going to be kind of like mingling in the back. If you think you have some words that you want to say, want to come up and grab the mic, or even speak at ground level, that's awesome. Like it doesn't matter. You don't have to have something compelling and amazing to say. We just want to hear from you, okay? So we're happy to have you here and have your presence here, but bring your voice too, okay? Ben Lupo, why don't you come on up? Department of Children, Youth, and Families, state employee, Green Hill.
All right, thank you, each and every one of you guys, for being here, because I'm not going to lie, you know, I look forward to this every week. It's nice to be surrounded by people that are going through the same thing that you're going through, and I'm talking to people every day that are struggling, and I mean, not with just the littlest things. I mean, you know, it's literally, you know, a day-to-day thing, and it's people like us that are out there that are talking to people that are keeping the flame alive, and this is their routine, right? To divide us and to separate us and make us feel weak and hopeless and hope that we'll drop like flies. And believe me, it's really effective. You know, so many of us have stopped thinking for ourselves and stopped following our heart and stopped, you know, dealing with stuff deep inside. You know, we're just so used to seeing everything on the TV these days, and it just, nothing really shocks us anymore. But the bottom line is, if what you're seeing going on around you right now is shocking you, it's not shocking you, then, man, I really feel sorry for you. So, you know, I've taken it upon myself. I've worked at Green Hill here in Chehalis for almost 20 years. Actually, I don't think I'll make it to my 20 years because my 20-year anniversary is November 2nd of this year. So I'm either going to be a little bit shy or a whole lot. It doesn't really matter at this point. I've worked above and beyond in the trenches with people that nobody wants to spend time with. I've been punched, I've been kicked, I've been spit on, I've had feces thrown on me, I've had everything happen to me. And yet I showed up there day after day, and not only did I show up there, but I stayed late. I've been working overtime since this pandemic bullshit, whatever you want to call it, has started. And, you know, for the last 18 months, I've been a superstar. I've been getting mentioned every month in the newsletter and, you know, Employee of the Month. And, I mean, it's just a bunch of horse shit that means absolutely nothing to me right now. So I took it upon myself to start my own group with coworkers that are going through the same things that I am and maybe don't have the spine to stand up for themselves. They want to hear what's going on, and they're getting more and more informed, and they're really starting to fill up. We meet every Sunday here in Chehalis. A couple of the local businesses have opened their business up for us to meet. And I suggest you do that, you know, with other people. You know, just get together, bounce ideas off people. Sometimes just event. But we're also planning events every week. We're doing something. If I'm not up at Penny Playground standing up there with signs, I'm going to be down on the 13th Street overpass Saturday at noon. We're going to be stuffing the overpasses with everybody that we can, and we're going to be getting signs, and we want anybody that wants to come out and participate to let Lewis County and America know where you stand on these issues. Another thing I want to talk about, thank you, is our workless union. All right, I've been a shop steward for 15 years. I'm the vice president of Local 862 right here in Chehalis, and I've been fighting in the trenches for them. As a matter of fact, I'm the reason that most of my union members cannot withdraw from the union, because when the Janus Act came out, they had me working at Green Hill for the union to sign up all my co-workers because they know what an impact I have. And I literally signed almost all of them up, and we thought it was because they were going to produce them to the legislature for the Janus Act and the Right to Work Act. Come to find out, they're using those dates to hold you to your membership. So if you go up to the union right now and say, I want to quit paying dues, what you can do is give up your rights as a union member, but you're still going to end up paying until that date comes around. That really hit me hard, right? I thought I was doing the right thing, but basically I was setting up all my co-workers that, you know, really weren't in support. They trusted me, and now that's being used against me. I would encourage anybody that's a union member that works for WFC or has an opportunity to reject the ratification agreement that they have with the state to please do so. I myself did it. I don't believe it stands for the working man. I don't believe it helps any of the people that really need the help. I believe it only alleviates the inevitable, and that's to have us out of the workplace. And for them to stand up and say, for worst thing, they didn't check with anybody in the union to see how they felt about it. How would this impact them, right? This is a union. This is what we do all the time, right? I know, because they've had me out doing it. I'm the one that's on the front line that's doing it, which is why I'm also going to be on the front line fighting against them, because all that training and all that shit that they put me through, I'm going to use it against them. All right, so hey, I appreciate all the extra training and all the extra places they flew me to and all the bullshit that they put me through in all these organizing meetings, because now I'm using it against their ass. And I encourage every one of you guys to do the same. Hey, take a moment to come up out of your time and just say something special, right? Because everybody needs to hear it. Everybody. We're all in this together. Together we stand, divided we fall.
Pass the mic to another shop steward for Wolfsey. Ridiculous. Hi, I'm Damon Brown. I live in Thurston County. I'm a Democrat. I'm not here to watch you guys, okay? I'm not spying. I'm not, I promise. But I can tell you that I am with you. So, Wolfsey sat down with the governor, and then Wolfsey agreed with the governor. He just basically gave people more time to get their stuff in order, right? So those who are on the fence, they've got a little bit more time to think about it. For folks like me, who has a medical condition, and I'm a believer, yes, Democrats are believers too. I'm not going to go for any accommodation. I'm going to be done. God for me is going to close one door and open a window. I'm already making preparations for that. Okay? What they failed to do, Wolfsey, was to fight for all people, right? I'm a dues payer. They're not fighting for me. I talked to my mentor. My mentor said, this is a democracy, and not everybody's going to get their way. But I thought this was a republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Not just some, not just a couple, all of us. Wolfsey, you failed. Leanne Kuntz and Mike Yemensky, please do truck yourself. Do you hear me? Just like the last speaker was saying, I've been down with Wolfsey for a very long time. I've been paying for a really long time. I come from a union family. We used to build automobiles. And the stuff I know about these folks is they don't like people getting in their money. So, for folks out there who are dues payers, stay long enough to vote no on what is supposed to be a fair and balanced protection package for all. Just say no, and then quit the union. Quit them as quickly as possible. Keep your money in your pocket, okay? And let's say you go ahead and get the vaccine. I'm not hating you. Do what's right for you, right? That's not any of our argument, right? It's just not right for us now. It might not be right for us ever, but even if you drop dues, they still have to protect you, right? Funny thing is they didn't learn when they lost Janice, right? Stop pressing people to do things that they do not necessarily agree with, right? And that would be those teachers in California that are like, hey, I'm a God lover. You keep picking people that don't have that about them. Why is my money going to support a presidential or local candidate that I'm just not vibing with, right? Here they're doing it again. A small majority of holdouts get protected, but the folks that are righteous, that have some pride about what they want to put in their body, get cast out from that. So yeah, drop your union dues. If you're woofsy, just drop them. They do not care about you at all, right? They want your money. That's pretty much it. We need to bring them to their knees. They need to listen, right? We're coming at a time where people's religious exceptions are coming back. Folks, physical accommodations are coming back. They're getting determinations. Some up, some down, right? What happens next? We need to stay angry, upset, motivated, and show up when it's time to get moving, right? What the governor and what other governors and what the president will understand is if Washington is brought to its knees and no one can go anywhere for a little bit. Folks are hereby inconvenienced by you and others asserting your First Amendment right to be heard, and we've been ignored way too long. It's coming. The transition is here. Finality about a lot of stuff will depend on our public optic and what we do next. Please do be prepared. Violence is not an option. It's not even a means to an end at this point. That's not how they play. We shouldn't. I'll take that back. Violence is still not an option. Whew, that was hard to say. I'm going to need a hug after this. Anyway. But we do need to make way to open space for folks that are new to this, okay? Folks that are first-timers. For the first time, they're walking into an arena and they're being called names like uneducated, dumb, conspiracy theorists. What's another one? Give me a good one. What was that? Anti-vaxxers. Oh, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I got all my shots. I just don't want this one. That means I'm unvaccinated. If you want to take the shot, go ahead. Right? I just am not ready for it. So those first-timers are coming into the fold and they're like, been pointed at. Hey, what about the vulnerable? Okay, so we're talking about 22.3% of the population. Most of them 17 to 0. The other 84 and up. So I don't know about. Don't take this as medical anything. But if I remember what was going on when I was 17 to 0, my immune system was the best it's ever been. Right? Those folks, according to the CDC, have less than 1% chance of succumbing to COVID. So they're not the most vulnerable. What's another myth? Oh, that the vaccine's a cure. Is it a cure?
Did you hear the CDC change their definition of what a vaccine is? It no longer.
Do you want to grab that mic?
Yeah.
We're gonna just open this up to right. There we go.
It might turn into a comedy routine because it literally comes across as that. So the CDC changed its, or the FDA, CDC changed its definition of what a vaccine is a couple days ago. What vaccination no longer contains the word immune to or immunology. It just means protected by. So that's pretty vague, right? Because the very pretense of being vaccinated would to inherit some type of immunity. But now it's just protective factors, not how long those protective factors last, not the efficacy or the percentage of those protective factors, just simply protective factors. At the very same time, we're learning that those protective factors have a 5 to 8 month shelf life, maybe, if you're being liberal, maybe more like 3 months. So you can see that they've redefined something in the long term to make it palatable for you. And so the fact that it's a vaccine, it never was a vaccine, it's gene therapy. We know that. That's a misconception that it ever was a vaccine. But now we have a whole new definition of what a vaccine is to include gene therapy. So that should come as a little bit of a fear to those listening.
So those first timers will be getting a lot of the information that you have. Like, hey, I met you at the rally. Check out this video. Check out this doctor saying something. Check out this biologist saying something. You will probably never get a video with a guy wearing a tinfoil hat. How many people have gotten a video about the disease with a guy wearing a tinfoil hat? Not even anyone in the back. Oh, okay. So first timers, you're going to get a lot of that stuff. Open your hearts to those folks. Educate those folks. Pull those close, right? Because we're going to have to move. We're going to need to be moving together, right? So we're going to be chewing gum and walking at the same time, and people will be pulling into us as we're going. Grab them. Take them with us, okay? So with that, no, you can't have the mic yet. I'm feeling myself right now. Yeah. Again, I'm Damon Brown, and I'm glad that you're here. And with that, I'll give the mic.
Thank you, Damon. Man, I don't even understand how people can wrap their head around the union stuff. I don't. That's just not my cup of tea. They've frustrated me, just the very fact that they are a union. Not that unions don't protect people, but we really appreciate the work that he's done on that. Hold on, you got something to tell me? Okay. Anyway, so one of the interesting things about building a community-based fellowship in an organization such as Medical Freedom Lewis County, which is boots on the ground, foot soldiers of God, here doing the work in the community, not just a Facebook page, not just a website, is we get to bridge the multi-generational divide. And I had a gentleman named Johnny Dunnigan. Did I say it right, Johnny? Yeah, he graduated right here in 1966, and sometimes we forget that we have our elders in the fight as well, standing by us, and I believe he wrote a story this week that he would like to share. And again, sometimes our only language for describing what we're seeing, feeling, hearing, and experiencing is using religious undertones and scriptural undertones. So I want to prepare this story for you in the sense that he really goes on a deep dive to something very relevant today using the text of antiquity. So here you go, Johnny.
Well, I'd like to say one thing. Sometimes the enemy is not from far off. They don't have to come from another country. Sometimes the enemy is right here in our own government. I don't know how many of you people are thinking that way, but I've been thinking a lot that way here lately. I just want to read this. I wrote this Monday. My daughter Melody, who's right back here, she graduated from ADNA too. So did my daughter Tiffany, who's right back there too. Anyway, Melody told me this needs to be heard, and I want to share it with you, and I'm going to try to read it. So, It's titled David and Goliath. Imagine with me the story of David and Goliath in the Bible. I'd like to submit to you two stories. Both of these stories, I made them up using the Bible, the story of David and Goliath. As I have watched the news and listened to how churches have been picked on by local governments to shut down and told that singing was not allowed in churches and that masks must be worn, as well as social distancing must be followed even in the churches. The churches have become the David in the stories that I want to tell you. To fully understand the Goliath that I want to portray, you must allow your mind to visualize him as mostly one thing. That one thing is COVID-19. This virus is believed to have been engineered in the Wuhan lab in China. I use the term engineered to say that the coronavirus has been around for many years, but was manipulated scientifically, and I believe chemically, to add in other things so that it would affect humans more drastically. I'd like to state at this point that I'm not interested in trying to go into any discussion on the making of the virus, just that it was done. Goliath, in my stories, is not someone that has a mind of his own. He is incapable of having an opinion or even thinking. The army around Goliath is formed by any number of things or individuals. To name a few, I believe they include groups like Antifa, BLM, the liberals in the world, members of the government, including certain representatives and senators, and even the executive branch of the United States of America. Around Goliath, and like a cloud over the conflict, would be things like socialism, Marxism, and communism. Also, in the far background would be those who would have sent Goliath into the fray. They would be George Soros, Bill Gates, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Klaus Schwab, and the Chinese Communist Party and former President Obama. I believe there are many more, but for now, I'll just allow you to use your imagination. In my first story, we see Goliath out on the battlefield. He is decked out with his helmet, a huge shield, a huge sword that has a very sharp point on it and honed to such an edge it could shave a man's arm. He is wearing a skirt-looking piece of armor of metal around his waist, made of strips of metal that hang down halfway between his knees and feet. He looks invincible. As Goliath came out onto the battlefield, shouts came from the army of assailants for David and his army to put their masks on and to take the shots of experimental drugs. They tried to explain the significance of those items, but never seemed to be able to justify their reasoning to the educated population. That's us. We're the educated population. They seemed to settle on simply trying to cause David's army to fear the consequences if they did not comply. The plan seemed to be to make the giant appear undefeatable. The giant did appear to be bigger than life. David had been tending the sheep in a pasture quite a journey from the battlefield, but he had decided to go see his brothers who were there. He gathered several things and started on his way. He was a little nervous about what he would find when he got there, though. When he arrived to the site where his brothers were, he was weary from the journey and wanted to sit a while. His brothers insisted he go see the giant that had popped up from the army of the enemy. When they got close enough to see the giant, David exclaimed, "He's huge!" His brothers told him that what they needed was someone who had killed bears and lions to go out and fight the giant. David stated that he had killed bears and lions, but this is no bear or a lion. David could not get over how big the giant was and how muscular and experienced at fighting he must be. The brothers begged him to try. David finally agreed. After some thought, David began to feel obligated to see what he could do. Without a lot of delay, David begins to walk out toward the giant, and as he does, he puts on his mask and stops at a station that was set up where he was given a shot of the experimental drug. David then begins to hasten his trip out to the battlefield after hearing Goliath yelling at him and calling him names. In his haste, David forgot his sling and rocks. As he approaches the giant begins to spit at him and continues to call him names with even more gall than ever before. Goliath asked him who he was that he thought he could even come near such a fighter as himself. David started to answer him and reached for his sling when it dawned on him he had left it somewhere in the background. David, in embarrassment, turned and ran like a baby away from the laughing and scoffing giant. As he arrived back in the more protected area with the rest of his army, he was asked what was the problem. He was asked if he had lost his nerve because they knew he had killed bears and lions before. He stated that he had misplaced his sling and forgot to get rocks. In this story and the next, the sling represents the Bible, and rocks represent promises from the Bible, such as Psalm 91. In this second story, David was out minding his sheep and is contemplating the words of God where it says, "In this world you will have troubles, but take heart, for I have overcome the world." John 16:33. David is amazed as he is thinking about how good and gracious God is. He begins to sing and is nearly dancing with joy to know that God cares for him so deeply. He decides to go check out his nation's army to see if they might need something. He had some brothers that were with the army and possibly fighting. David grabs his sling and begins to head toward the battlefield. Along the way, he is still singing and thinking about the goodness of God. As he reaches the battlefield, he finds his brothers and begins to chat and make small talk, and even joking about the opposing army. David at this point is so charged up with the power of God from his singing and thinking on the promises of God. He is reminded of the words that Moses told Joshua. Moses said, "Be strong and courageous, for you shall go with this people into the land that the Lord has sworn to their fathers to give them, and you shall put them in possession of it. It is the Lord who goes before you." David was fearless at this point and felt like he could take on the world if need be. He was not in doubt that the Lord would go before him, regardless of the circumstances. He was trying to joke more with his brothers when they began to get serious on him. David asked them what the problem was, and they told him about the giant. They said that the giant was so huge and that his army had to be his armor had to be extremely heavy because it was so big. David tried to make light of the size of the giant when his brothers exclaimed that they would take him to see the giant. David was talking on the way about how big God was and that he would be with all of them in the battle and that victory should be theirs with God on their side. They just continued to talk about the magnitude of the giant. As they approached a place where they could see the giant and began to hear him as he belittled the army opposing him, David was incensed, and even a giant like Goliath could think about going against an army of God. David checked to make sure that he still had his sling and began to keep his eyes open for the perfect rocks. His brothers asked him what he was doing. He suggested that he could go up against the giant because the Lord would go before him, just like Moses told Joshua he would. They questioned his size and his age and his experience. He kept insisting that the Lord would go before him and that I accidentally touched it and it went away. Okay. This must be something the Lord wanted to happen. Let's see. David was talking on the way about how big God was and that he would be with all of them in the battle. Okay. Here it is. His brothers asked him what he was doing. He suggested that he could go up against the giant because the Lord would go before him, just like Moses told Joshua he would. They questioned his size and his experience. He kept insisting that the Lord would go before him and that would give him victory over Goliath and that his harassing voice would not be heard anymore. The brothers tried to convince David to wear some armor, but he complained that it was too clumsy and might cause him to fall or stumble because he was not used to wearing such stuff. David began to head toward the giant, picking up some final excellent choices of rocks. He placed one stone in the sling to make sure it was the one he wanted. It felt right, so he charged on. As he neared the giant, Goliath looked at him and sneered. Just a little closer, David thought, and I will be close enough to get a good shot off. He moved closer, and Goliath thought about the size and age of David and was sure that his experience fighting would not compare to his own size, and besides, an experienced soldier would wear armor. David was nearing the place where he would crouch and get situated to get the first stone on its way. The giant yelled some swear words at David and called him names to belittle him. David stood up with his first stone ready and yelled at Goliath that today he was coming to take him down because today the Lord had gone before him and the victory was going to be his. Before Goliath could say anything in response, David had his sling in motion and the stone was on its way to the giant's head, right between the eyes. The giant fell unconscious to the ground. David, knowing that the giant would come to any minute, grabbed the sword out of the giant's hand and cut off his head. As he was hurling the sword in the air to come down on the giant's neck, he yelled out with a loud voice, "Victory is ours because of our Lord God, who goes before us and makes us bold and courageous along the way." I believe more than ever before that there are some things in this world that we have to fight literally for. One of those things is our freedom, and our freedom to worship the one true and loving God. I believe that there are churches that would prefer not to ever fight, but try to love everyone and accept everything that is thrown at us. This would include a manufactured virus with all of the concoctions that would supposedly indicate a method of prevention that might possibly be more dangerous in the long run than the virus. I believe that we Christians have allowed the giant to be the giant and have not reached out to God with boldness and courage to beat the enemy regardless of his or its size. Sometimes the fight winds up being against government and government officials. We will see how that fight goes before long in the state of Washington. I want always to hang on to the verse in the Bible where it says, "If God be for us, who can stand against us?" I want to urge all of our churches to get serious with God and fight this battle, which winds up being a spiritual battle that is going to take all of us to be at our peak, faith-wise, in order to win. Be bold and courageous, because the Lord God is going before us.
Hi guys, it's me again. I just want to share a few more thoughts. I was remembering some things. So there's a twofold situation happening right now where A, you're fighting for your rights and your job, but you have an opportunity to think about the future and the future that you want and the future that God wants for us. Some of the healthcare workers that I've been working with have already moved into that second phase of what kind of healthcare would we like to provide. And I don't know if you're familiar with the idea of parallel structures, but I would encourage you to go home and Google that. We may need for the short term or the long term to be creating livelihoods in non-traditional ways, let's say that. And I just want to encourage you to look at it as an opportunity. As someone who's freelanced a lot throughout my life, that first leap can be scary, but once you discover the freedom that gives you to set schedules and to try new things and really to go where God's leading you instead of where your boss is leading you, it can be a very exciting adventure. And this is an opportunity for some of us to take that leap. There's also an opportunity as a citizen at the local level to be working on various measures, ordinances, resolutions at the city level, the county level, to try to create protection for your community. So in Cowlitz County and Clark County, there are a lot of people working very hard and very fast to create resolutions and ordinances that would either, for instance, in Cowlitz, they just passed a resolution last week that stated that they would not require county employees to vaccinate. And that was something that they could do to create at least an umbrella over a certain number of people. And this is the result of multiple weeks of working together, collaborating, showing up at their county commissioner meetings, and working together to ensure that they could just push as hard as possible for this. And we all have those opportunities in our own communities. In Battleground, we just had a rally the other night for a city councilman who was putting forward an ordinance that would actually outlaw discrimination against the unvaccinated in the city of Battleground. That's a very, very exciting thing, yeah, but it does require people showing up and getting re-engaged again in their local government. Some of us don't even know where our city hall is anymore, right? So it's an opportunity to bring the kids and just fill that town hall, that city hall, and rediscover what your local government is. A lot of times, especially in communities like this where you have a smaller population, you may be next door to your county councilman and not even know, you know. And so we have those opportunities to actually leverage relationships that we have in our ordinary lives to be like, hey, can we talk about this? This isn't okay. I need you to stand up for our rights. And somebody who was on the fence might go, well, okay, I don't want to have that conversation, but I guess I have to. Because now I know you and we're having that face-to-face. just drawing a blank again. I know there's another thing, but that's okay. Please stay in touch on Waking Up Washington. I try to, I'm really focused right now on helping people form small local groups, and it doesn't matter how big or small that is, but anytime we find out about situations like this, we post those events. So it's also an opportunity for you to get people around, your friends and family around the state involved, just to be like, hey, guess what? There's a rally in Spokane on the 25th. You guys should go. I will share that one event that we have on the calendar is on the 18th. We're part of the Worldwide Rally for Freedom. Because we had a little bit of drama in Olympia this past week, I've decided I'm not going to wrestle with that. I find Olympia unpleasant at the best of times. But we're doing a statewide event. We're going to be having banners, very large banners that say things like end the mandates, things like that nature, on overpasses up and down I-5. Somewhere in Seattle, we're still sorting out that location, and also on an overpass in Spokane. So if you're interested in potentially helping out with that, basically we need people at various overpasses and locations holding up these really big banners, and then you can also have people join you with signs and flags and all that good stuff. And our hope is we can piece together all these photos and videos of that event on the 18th from people around the state gathering and kind of tell the story of how many people are really on our side. So just come and give me a shout if you're interested in being part of that. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Jordan Dixon. For anybody who doesn't know me, I was not going to speak tonight. I have a medical condition, and I just got my medical exemption back. They approved it, but I just wanted to share with you what my experience is, if it helps anybody out. So what they said was, in considering your request for exemption, DOC-HR evaluated the essential functions of your position as well as business requirements for workplace safety. Performing the essential functions of your position unvaccinated poses a threat to the health and safety of yourself and others in the workplace. So, let me go on to the next page. Their accommodation decision, so they basically just tried to tell me what they were going to try to accommodate me with. After carefully reviewing your job classification, essential functions, and working environment, we have determined the only reasonable accommodation we can offer is the possibility of a reassignment. There are no other accommodations for your position available which sufficiently mitigate or eliminate the risk associated with having an unvaccinated employee performing the essential functions of your position. As far as I know, it's supposed to be a negotiation for your accommodation. So I actually wrote them back, and I said, part of it, my whole email is 2 pages long, I won't read it all, but I put in there and I highlighted, since you all know so much about my job and what I do on a day-to-day basis, you would know that as a CCO with a low kiosk caseload, I do not have any face-to-face or fieldwork contact with offenders anyways, regardless of our memo that came out, which, since the Delta variant is out, they knocked us back to different reporting standards for people. So I don't have any face-to-face contact with these people, and they're saying that there's no other accommodation. So at the end, I said I look forward to further negotiations with my reasonable accommodation. I haven't heard anything back yet, but I will keep you guys updated. But anybody else want to share their experience? Go ahead.
Okay, folks, would anyone like to say a few words of what they're going through with their employer, or something that's noteworthy that you want to share with the group, or? Okay. Thanks for coming out tonight. I think we're going to wrap it up. It's getting cold, starting to get dark earlier. Oh, we've got, he'll chat with the edge. Yeah.
My name is Brian. I'm from Olympia, Washington. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and I worry about her health. And her mom works for Department of Corrections. She's a state employee, and also under the mandate. She has a neurological problem where she can't get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. She also has an allergy to sulfate and can't get the Moderna or the Pfizer. Yet her employment is leveraged on getting the vaccine no matter what. Now, she has filed for a religious exemption, and I can't remember if they had denied her or not, but she got a letter. And that's as far as I know. But I'm sure a lot of you out there may be wondering if it's going to come to you if you don't work for the state or work in education or another department that is mandating, or employer that's mandating a vaccine that you don't want to take. And what that must feel like, and how scared you might be about your financial responsibilities, being able to pay for groceries, and even go to a grocery store if you're not vaccinated. What that feels like to me is like an elephant is on my chest. And I can say that because I had a heart attack a month ago, and it felt like an elephant was on my chest. Now, I'm not getting vaccinated. I'm choosing not to because I don't know what it's going to do long term, and nobody knows. No scientist or biologist, virologist, whatever, can tell you ultimately what it's going to do to your body long term. And so, am I going to be able to receive medical treatment, echocardiograms on my heart, treatment from a cardiologist down the road if I'm not vaccinated? There's other states, people in other states saying they're going through situations where they can't get medical treatment. And that's wrong. That's wrong on all sorts of levels. I saw a video today of two women that went into a grocery store in Vancouver, Washington, with their children to get groceries, and they weren't wearing masks. And they were cited by a police officer in Vancouver, Washington. Yeah. So if that's what it's going to come down to, is a segregation of unvaccinated individuals, that's a civil rights violation. And I think we all need to stand up to our leadership. And what we need is people in numbers going to our Capitol. And I'm not just saying sitting on a grass lawn and powwowing and meditating. We need people to go down there and shake it up. We need to tell our governor, who I don't believe is our governor anyways, he doesn't have everybody's best interests in mind, and that's what you should have when you become a politician and you're serving people. You are a servant. You listen to the people. The majority is not being heard, and we are the majority. I guarantee you that everyone out here is part of a majority, a silent majority, whatever you want to call it. But we are part of that majority, and we need to be heard, and I think we need to go to the Capitol, and we need to go downtown Olympia, and we need to walk in the street and not allow people to go by. We need our voices heard, our First Amendment rights to be heard. My daughter's mom should not be under duress of any kind, coercion, if you want to call it, for her financial obligations. She should be able to have her job because she does a great job at what she does. And for them to leverage her financial freedom on a vaccine we don't know will kill her in 2 years, that's BS. So I urge all of you to come out. We go out almost every Saturday to the Capitol building and have a rally. Come out there. Don't be scared to have your voice heard. Don't be scared to step in that street and not allow somebody to go by to have your voice heard. Get a sign, get a flag, get whatever you have, and stand up, because that's what we need to do. It's time. I don't think there's any time like the present to get our voices heard and to get this message out there that we will not be pushed around. We will not have our freedom stripped little by little, because right now it seems like it's going faster and faster downhill. And the more we allow that dirt to slide underneath our feet and not step up and get back on that level playing field with these jerks, politicians that think they have our best interests in mind, I don't know what's going to happen. We need to stand up. And thank you for coming out. It takes a lot of heart to come out to a place and have your voice heard and have your presence known. Thank you.
My name is April Jones, and I want to give a word of encouragement that God's got this, and that a couple years ago he told me this is the beginning of the separation of the wheat and the tares, And there's no way he's gonna fail us. This separation has to happen. It's uncomfortable to go through these times. In Isaiah it says, "Trust not in Egypt, for Egypt is man, not spirit." And we need to trust in the Lord for our health and our future and our protection, and I believe we can safely do that. I just want to encourage, God's got this. Now this looks like Valley Forge right now, but all we have to simply do is stand up and say no. Say no on this one thing if you can't say no on anything else in your lifetime. You know, we inherited the freedom that people died to get for us here. So let's just stand together and say no. Our numbers are greater, and we have the right on our side.